First world, come in and take a seat. Pay us no attention, it's all conspiracy. We have satire and parody, some funny, some perverse. If none of it's offensive to you, you'd be the first.
The Immortal Mask, a 1970s superhero crime noir adventure that follows a retired soldier who is given a covenant interview with a death row inmate. What he learns from the interview thrusts him into Atlanta's shadowy underworld. He'll have to utilize his military training to survive from being hunted for the information that could topple the most powerful ruling class in the city. This is not a pre-order or a crowdfunding campaign. Get your books now at Denali's.com.
Hey friends, Morgan Quaid here to tell you about a little project called The Crimson Folly, a D&D inspired comic anthology which takes place in a fantasy tavern called, you guessed it, The Crimson Folly. I'm working with more than a dozen artists from all over the world to bring this story to life through sequential comic artwork, intricate portrait pieces, sketches, and of course, words. My aim is to produce a combined comic story and art book. The first 40 pages will be a comic book telling the main story of the folly and using different artists to build out each section of the story. The art book will then contain sketches and short stories relating to characters from that story. So if you're a fan of D&D, fantasy artwork, comics, or just great storytelling, you'll love The Crimson Folly. Yes, you will.
Hey, yo, it's me, Pops Van Marmalade, and you're watching the Comics-Related Madness Network. Uh-huh. So come get some. CromCon. CromCon.
25 seconds to curtain, folks.
Your favorite podcast is Critical Blast.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show Mr. Donald Osborne.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Oz.
I was going to do that. I read the little thing down there. And I would do the same thing if it were me. I was like,
oh, yeah.
Call me Oz. That's cool.
Yeah, so it started when I was in the Army. Everybody just went by their last names, and mine just got shortened down to Oz, and it's stuck ever since. So,
well, thank you for your service. I appreciate it, and I'm sure that a lot of our listeners do as well.
I appreciate that. I heard this guy jokingly say once, "Thank you for my service," and so I like to steal that because that's good. That's a good thing. But yeah, no, it's a good nickname. It's why my YouTube channel is called Mr. Super Oz, and it exists to try and tell people that I have a graphic novel. So
well, I see a lot of graphic novels behind you that you've got, but I think this is the one that you actually wrote.
You are correct. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I gotta say, I love those commercials that aired before, I was revealed. I'm just a little bit jealous of that Folly one. Oh my goodness, that thing was fun.
That is a good looking commercial. I didn't make any of them I didn't even make the one for myself. I hired people to do those.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it was double thumbs up to whoever made that happen.
A lot of creative people out there. I mean, I look at them like, you spent more time making that commercial than you did your comic, I think.
It's definitely a possibility, but something we were talking about off air, I think that's one of my shortcomings is the advertising or selling of myself or the product. But the first time the campaign was up, I didn't even have a YouTube channel. I was just really bad at all of this. So I'm little by little trying to get better. And thank you for having me on in an effort to get the idea out that, I have, a story worth checking out. So
and folks, if you haven't been paying attention to what you just saw, he has the physical product in hand.
So there are only 14 of these left. This cover will never be printed again because the first time the campaign went live, there were two covers: a cover A by Jeff Hicks from World Class Bullshitters, and cover B by Nick Crook, a local artist who finished the story with the final 15 pages to get everything together. The reason there are two artists is because, I mean, if it's okay that I jump down this.
It happens, yeah.
Okay, cool. Sometimes there are certain structures that people like to go down before I ramble. So I just want to make sure. But the reason
there's all fly by the seat of our pants.
Perfect. So the reason there are two artists is because so not only was I in the Army, but I tried my hand at professional wrestling, and there were multiple times where I would show up to indie shows and it'd be the cliched get you next time, kid. Sorry, we wasn't a good gate. And so when I first met Jeff Hicks at Cincinnati Comic Expo in 2014, the guy who did the majority of the art, he was intrigued about my both the concept of my story and basically my disposition, because I was very down on myself at the time. My wife had just left, and she was like, "Oh, you're a hopeless dreamer. You'll never accomplish anything." And I kept making self, like the jokes that put yourself down. I forget the term.
Self-deprecating terms.
Thank you. And so he found that amusing because I was attempting to turn my unpleasant time into an amusing anecdote for story times. And so we later met up, and I gave him a 10-page script because it's all I could afford to pay for at the time. And so every time we would meet, I would only give him enough pages, or as many pages as I could afford to pay for at the given moment. And so he got 53 pages done, but then his channel and he himself, the person, just grew beyond me being his breadwinner, or me being the one who is the primary funder of his art. And you know, he's gone on to have great success with Stealing Solo and Woke Busters, Tits and Art.
Well, now let's temper the word success when it comes to Stealing Solo. That was a bit of a show.
Oh, so what I meant was, financially, he.
Oh yeah, he did well financially. But
that's all I meant was like.
Oh yeah, no. When someone says Stealing Solo, that is going to be forever. I'm not going to say a high point, but it's definitely a point in independent comics history that people will remember. And if you're not familiar with it, Stealing Solo is basically the book that got shipped out with a label on the back cover and thrown in the mail. It was no protection at all. It was hilarious.
Some sort of negativity, but I was very distant from the whole goings on of whatever the
thing for you.
Like I said, I didn't have a YouTube channel. Like I knew him, and like we were friends, but like we weren't close or like in communication all the time type of thing. And I was in a financial hardship, so I didn't even back the first time that he put the book out because I just didn't have extra money at the time. Sure. And when he did the second version, that's when I was like, oh, I got a few dollars, here you go. And then I got it and had no issue. So I didn't even realize that was. What's that?
The second version was fine. I know they reproduced it and learned from the mistakes.
Right.
Well, we've got people in the chat here showing up to find out about your book here and your history. We've got Pops Van Zant, whose network we are on and simulcasting tonight. We are going out to 8 different locations right now simultaneously. So 2 YouTube channels, some Twitch, some Twitter, and some Facebook groups. So you are getting visuals here. Yeah, and you're right, Neff. I don't hate, but I do laugh because it just takes me back to that time. And yeah, there have been comics that have gone out in Ziploc freezer bags, which I don't knock. I used to keep my comics in Ziploc bags. I was 13, but
I like that.
And there was no comic shop that I mileage. So I was like, they put them in bags. I'll just put them in these. And of course, I'm 13. I'm reading them all the time. So I'm like taking them out, putting them in, taking them out, putting them in, and they got a zipper on them, and you're always catching the pages on it. So they're getting dinged along the edges here. Mike Walters in the show. Mike Walters runs the mic stand every night at top of the hour after this one, where he goes over the niche news of the day, everything in manga, anime, comic books, and professional wrestling. So he is asking what part of the country's independent scene you were participating in.
So I first wrestled in Hawaii. So while I was in the Army, I deployed to Iraq for 15 months. And while I was over there, my mom would send me wrestling magazines, as a care package because she, knew I love wrestling. And one day in the dining facility, a sergeant walks up to me and said, "Where'd you find that?" I was like, "Well, can I curse?"
Yeah.
Oh, I said, "Well, fuck, I didn't find this. My mom sent it to me." And so he was like, "Man, I've always wanted to be a wrestler." I was like, "Me too." And so at this point, it was like insta friendship. There was no question about it. Like we're friends. I mean, we're still friends to this day. We were just talking earlier. But we made the deal that whichever one of us got back to Hawaii first would find a training school. And so originally I wasn't supposed to get back when I did, but a master sergeant who, I don't know, took a liking to me, realized that I had turned 20 in Iraq and I was about to turn 21 in Iraq. And he said, "That's not happening. You're coming home with me." And I don't know who got bumped, but I got to turn 21 in Hawaii. And so while I was home and after the partying commenced, I sought out this wrestling school and I hit up my friend, Mr. Thomas. He also has a YouTube channel. But so I hit him up and I said, "Hey, this is what we're doing. As soon as you get back, we're going to the school." So we started in October of 2007. And by January of 2008, we had our first match together, but only by sheer accident or circumstance, because in December, somebody missed their flight, couldn't get back to the island. Another dude hurt his leg, and some weird random other event occurred. And so our trainer, Mike, who he wrestled under Micah Taylor, but his real name is Mike Shayer, he came to us because we were among the only people who had never been on a show before, and said, "Guess who's debuting this weekend, boys?" He said, "It's you." But the crazy thing is, since it was only January and we'd only started in October, neither one of us had figured out who the hell we were yet. Like, we were just learning the basics. And so he said, "Well, we don't have any other choice, so you're doing it. What do you got?" And so I had just had these custom-made suits tailored while I was over in Iraq, because these third country nationals would come onto the base, and so non-Iraqis and non-Americans from a third country, and they would try and sell us stuff. And one of the things was a tailor, and he was like, "Oh, I'll get it perfect, whatever you want." And so he made me two really nice looking suits, and so I unexpectedly became rich on a Wednesday, so that on Saturday I could debut as a rich character. Even though I'd never known being rich in my entire life. But he said, "Well, you got suits, so congratulations." Well, and my entire name is Donald William Osborne III, and so he was like, "Well, just use your shoot name because it sounds like you're rich already."
Yeah.
And so my friend, Mr. Thomas, he did a lot of sparring and not quite MMA, but like he would work out a lot. So he had those like gloves that MMA guys do, and then the fight shorts and stuff. So he became a street fighter just for sheer practicality, because it was what we had. And so the first year I was in wrestling, I was in Hawaii, and it was beautiful and amazing and fun. When I got out or off of active duty and came back to Ohio, I had some time on the Ohio scene, since that's what the person asked. And like I said, multiple times throughout the years, it would just be like, "Oh, we didn't do so good." So that's what led to the relationship between me and Jeff, where I didn't want to treat him in that negative way that I had experienced before. where it was like, oh, you did the thing and you expected something, but can't get you this time. Hope to see you next time, kid. And so, yeah. Anyway, yeah, it was a lot of friggin' fun.
So SMIN WA Hawaii and SMIN WA Midwest.
Oh, well, it was actually Hawaii Championship Wrestling. Was the Hawaii promotion. There was an NWA, I think it was called Pacific Islands, but we'd only popped in, me and like my entire friend group popped into a show or two to feel out which side we wanted to work with. And due to Mike, the trainer of Hawaii Championship Wrestling, being formerly with WWE's developmental system, both in Ohio Valley Wrestling and Deep South Wrestling, is why we chose to go that route with Hawaii Championship Wrestling.
All right, that makes sense. But somewhere along the way, you decided, well, first of all, you've been a comic reader for a long time, looking at those books.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you remember the first comic book you got?
I don't. I feel like it was an X-Men book, but I do know it was in one of a pre-bagged like set of 3. Like it might have been X-Men 2099, but I think it was at like a Big Lots or something. Like it was just one of these easy grab. Hey, can I get this, Mom? And she's like, yeah, whatever. Just it's fine. It might not have been that specifically, but it was that general genre of time that I can recall the beginning of trying to figure out what the heck all this stuff was, because I didn't know where there was a comic shop when I was growing up. So I grew up where there were more cows than people. And so whenever we would go to the store, to get the laundry soap or the whatever, sometimes I would see, things that I somewhat recognized, like X-Men 2099 wasn't X-Men the animated series, but it's got a very similar thing going on in that title. So that's why I feel like that was one of the first things I gravitated toward.
But you were familiar with the characters from the animated series before you got into the books.
Oh yes, exactly. Yeah, I can remember doing some. I don't even know what the gimmick was, but I know that if I did I think it was like a reading task, I would get a coupon to go get a personal pan pizza from Pizza Hut, and I wanted to go there because they were giving out not giving out, but they were selling the VHS tapes with the sleek black box and the really nice. It was a pretty case that the came in, and hey, that's a way I can go back and rewatch the thing that I was enjoying, when it was on television. So, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's the way Mike Walters got into comics. I'm on his show every once in a while. He's pointing out that in the early 2000s, Hawaii had 3 promotions: Hawaii Championship Wrestling, Island Extreme Wrestling Federation, and Action Zone Wrestling. That's a lot of wrestling for little bitty state.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah, and you wouldn't believe the drama that went on between all those folks. It was a big pissing contest a lot of times.
Well, that's what made it fun. And then they became all one. And it was like
it really was one of the things that was exciting and interesting. Especially looking back, it was like, come on, guys, we're all out here trying to, accomplish the same goal, which is, have a good time and put on a good show. Yeah. I feel
and make a buck.
Absolutely. Although I'll be honest, that was not really the top of mind at the beginning, for me, at least, because as much as I'm glad that I got out of the military, one of the big things that I miss is free room and board. Like having cash from not paying rent is a thing that you quickly miss when it is gone.
Yeah, I can imagine. I worked at the Air Force Base. I had a bunch of friends on base housing that loved all that stuff. So because you were a big comic book reader, looked easy, you just thought you could write one? I mean, what happened here?
So it actually goes back to the feeling slighted in wrestling. So it wasn't my being slighted that made me stop doing it, but I was working for one particular Ohio-based promotion at the end of my time trying to make it in that, and I was so dedicated to the success of seeing it prosper that I had friends of mine from college come and shoot the product. And while I was okay not getting reimbursed for jack because I knew by having them I was going to get what I wanted, which was exposure. I wanted the promoter to reimburse my friends for their travels and efforts, and when he slighted them is when I was like, it's just not worth it anymore. All of this chaos of professional wrestling all of the fun of professional wrestling is being overshadowed by the chaos of this crap that I feel like I'm going through. So when I pulled myself out of that world, I felt underfulfilled when it came to what it brought to my life, which was telling stories. Now, in that way, it wasn't a literal write it down story, but it was a communicate with the friend who is your opponent, and then convince the people who are watching you of the story that you're trying to tell. But
sure.
But like I said, when I stepped away from that, when that stopped being an outlet, is when I realized that I needed something to not quite replace it, but just almost replace it. And so I'd already, like you can see, enjoyed comics, and I had just taken what I enjoyed. One of the main reasons why one of the heroes is a professional wrestler and has a military background is because there are things that I understand. And one of the characters has a medical background, because when I started writing the story, I was working to help developmentally disabled people with everyday tasks, and I was being very familiar with, taking the doctor's appointments and just helping them out. And so, one of the characters is a nurse in her day job. And then the final character, he is a stunt man turned leading man in the movie industry, where at the time that I was working on the story, I was in college to get a degree in video and audio production. I finished the 2-year degree, and I worked in TV for a little while, but it just, once again, it was that whole drama, the clash, the whatever, and thankfully they let me go. So I got something I didn't think was real, which was a severance package. So for years of my life there, because of where I grew up, I thought a lot of things were just TV, right? So the first time I ever saw an ice cream truck, I was already an adult. I thought ice cream trucks were made up for TV. I was like, who's driving all the way out here to, find 2 kids that in the middle of nowhere? That can't be real, right? Then I saw it as an adult, and I was like, oh, of course, it's in the city, dummy. And the same goes with a severance package. I thought, oh, this is just something made up for, TV and movies. There's no way that they're going to pay me not to come to work. I mean, that's a dream come true right there. And so when the TV station, well, first I took a 2-week vacation because, I had it, and I was like, well, let's burn those days. So I come back, and the boss meets me at the door and said, hey, come to the office. But this is like 6 months after they had already done some restructuring. And when they started, I was like, oh, you're going to let people go. And they're like, oh, now everybody's good. No problem.
No problem.
And so then the day that I walk in after taking a 2-week vacation, and he was like, hey, meet me in my office. I was like, oh, today's the day. Look at that. Who'd have thought? And so I was fine. I didn't even like that place very much. Like, I liked a lot of the people, the interactions, but there was just a large degree of the blame game. Like, oh, why did this happen? Well, because you asked for something that was incapable of being done, and I told you it couldn't be done, and then you said do it, and it turned into crap. Look at that. But anyway, they let me go, and they were like, oh, but here, if you could sign this is your severance pack. And so I was like, wait a second. I already don't have to come back here, but you're paying me not to come back here? They're like, yeah. And I'm like, that's what's up.
Yep. If I could find some place that would pay me every 2 weeks not to go in.
Yeah, that's a Fight Club type scenario that we need to get on with.
Absolutely.
But yeah, so the point was, it wasn't necessarily that I thought, oh, this is so easy, right? Oh, comics, that's the simplest thing in the history of life. No, it was just that I was missing that connection with storytelling. And so originally, I was not seeking an artist. So before my wife left me, I kept trying to draw the story myself, and I kept getting mad at myself, and I would never think it was good enough. I would crumple it up and throw it away. And so when she was finally done and she was like, "Oh, I'm on my way out," she's like, "Oh, you're a hopeless loser who'll never accomplish anything." I was like, "No, gee, thanks. Love you too." I didn't say that, obviously. I'm being a smart ass. But so like I said, I wasn't seeking an artist. I didn't even have the concept of a color. I thought, "Oh, I'll figure this out." I've done a lot of storytelling things. You know, I've worked in TV. I've shot things. I've used Photoshop. I'll figure this out. But when she departed, and a couple of friends of mine said, "Hey, we're going to the Cincinnati Comic Expo. What are you doing?" I was like, "Nothing. I just got off from a pointless job that is going nowhere." And they're like, "Oh, come on." So then I started talking to people, and I say that The Rock is the reason me and Jeff Hicks are friends, is because he had a bunch of 11 by 17 posters on his table. You know, The Rock, the Megazord from Power Rangers, and I don't know, a few other things. The point is, I got drawn to his table because of his art, and I started being self-deprecating, and it got him interested into the idea of the story of all these characters that had pieces of me in them. And he gave me a business card. Actually, normally this would be the moment where I'd pull it out of my wallet because I still have it. Even as far back as 2014 when I got it. I mean, it's in terrible shape now, but it's the principle of the matter that it was this person, when I met them, that had faith not just in me, but in the idea that I was conveying to him. That is why I kept it. He said next time we get together, I'll have to get a new one because the one that from 2014 is in such rough shape.
It's almost 10 years old now.
Exactly, it is. And I think I'm okay to say this. We're supposed to get together at this year's Cincinnati Comic Expo, because that'll be 9 years that since it began. Not the expo, but this journey. And so I don't know. I kind of lost track of the story, I guess.
Well, let's talk about what came out of all that, which is Everlasting Survivors. What is the okay? You've got the story, you've got the art boards, you're walking into Jumbo Comics, mega company corporation, and you're getting in the elevator and you look and it's like the Stan Lee, Dick Giordano guy who runs the place in the elevator with you. You've got 35 seconds before he gets off on his floor. What's the story?
The book is a story about three heroes who can come back from a death blow, but they never come back the same as the way that they were before. They come back with a new abnormality. I put it that way because it's not always necessarily a good thing. As you can see, one of our heroes is blue. So upon his the first time that he perishes, his complexion turns blue while he's in the hospital. So part of the story is the reveal unto not just the audience, but the characters themselves, how they got to be the way that they are. I don't know if I've gone 30 seconds or longer, but that's the basics of what is going on with the story. So they are everlasting because they can survive death blows. And they never act the same as they were. I've often put it, if it was the two circles that overlapped, it's the Fantastic Four Marvel's Fantastic Four meets DC's Resurrection Man as a team.
Okay, so they all resurrect with a difference every time. Difference in power or just difference in appearance?
It isn't the same each time. Each time that they resurrect or come back, there is something different about them, and they don't know what it is until they're back. I mean, I do, but they won't.
Yeah. I remember DC's Resurrection Man. That was a fun story because the DC had the Immortal Man and of course Savage. They both hit the same meteorite and lived forever.
Yes.
But Resurrection Man was like, hey, if I've got it's like I have an H dial. I just have to die before
The difference is theirs compound, whereas his replaces.
Ah, okay. So if your hero can fly and flies into a jet plane and then resurrects, now he can fly and he can bounce bullets.
Potentially, yeah. Neither one of those things happened, but yes, that is the concept.
All right.
Yes.
Wow. I would, if I knew it was compounding all the time like that, I'd be like, climb the steps, jump off the building. Okay,
Well,
climb them again.
You don't know that it's going to be a good thing, right? So it's not as though your complexion turning blue is some sort of asset. It's just a weird thing that occurred. And the case with the nurse, right? Her primary abnormality is she can't turn off the fact that she can read other people's thoughts. It just is always it's as if people are always talking whenever she's around them, even if their mouths are completely shut. She can just hear what they're thinking. And that, to me at least, is a very unpleasant thought, because one of the reasons I avoid movie theaters is because people won't shut the hell up. And if even at the movie theater they're quiet as a church mouse and you can still hear what they're thinking, that's got to be unpleasant.
Sure.
And so that's the reason, or the motivation behind not stepping off the roof or the tallest building in the biggest city, because who knows what's coming next, and it may not be what you want it to. It may not be anything that you like.
Yeah, I jumped off the building so I could see if I could get stronger, and I peeled myself off the sidewalk, allergic to oxygen.
Exactly. Yeah, nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. Yep.
Yeah, so I'm sneezing all the time now. So this is the first issue. When we meet our heroes, are they already a team? Is this something that's established and we'll find out more backstory slowly introduced?
Correct. Yeah. So when the story begins, I saw you were scrolling a moment ago. As you scroll, the first, I think 9, potentially 10 pages are on here. But yes, they are a pre-established team. This is actually villainy stuff where henchmen are fighting and getting at it, because not everybody believes in the big boss man's plans. Some people are just out for money. So anyway, that's what we're doing here early. As we keep going, we meet the team at the movie star's house because they're planning out their day. If you keep going, because they're going to go to a charity event. Again, these things are to just sprinkle out information about how the characters relate to one another, how the world sees them. That's what we do with the charity gimmick. And so yes, the team is pre-established here. All of them have died at least once. Actually, I think all of them have died. Yes, at least once. So to understand that they have the same thing going on, if you keep going past the words, that's when you get to the. So these are some of the pages from the second artist, Nick, who helped get to the final 15, or the complete 68 pages, I mean. And so his style is obviously not the same as Jeff's, but the fact is that in both cases, whether it was Jeff or Nick, I just prefer allowing people to have fun and freedom when it comes to art. Like I have a friend who was like, "Oh, why didn't you tell him to be more like Jeff? That way that they married well together." And I'm like, "Well, because I want him to have a good time." And and it's when you have the full story in hand, it is obvious that they're two separate people and their styles are different, but each person gets enough bite on their story to where that it's not like this is going and then boom, here comes Jeff, and then flip a page. It's not jumping back and forth. Nick's got he's got 10 pages and then 5 pages, and Jeff's got all the rest. And so it's broken up enough to where that it doesn't really clash, at least in my personal opinion. I think that it flows well together. Well enough, I'll say. I mean, yes, it would have been some sort of better if they were indistinguishable, maybe, but I don't hate that they both have their own styles. So
yeah, and you know what? It's something that comics have done for forever.
Oh,
I've got
absolutely.
plenty of comics where you open up, says pages 1 through 5 done by this guy, 6 through 10 done by this guy. Probably the best example of this is a 1976 Captain America Bicentennial Special. The entire thing drawn by Jack Kirby, but every 3 pages inked by a different artist. So it looked different all the way through.
Exactly.
Even though it was the same artist, it really drew all the pages.
Yes.
I'm just getting a kick out of reading the pages here of, it's not even a fight against a bad guy at this point. This is just them going to an event, doing a publicity thing for the kids.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was fun. The collaboration of this. So I wanted the kid to be a fan of the wrestler, but I didn't tell the artist to have him paint his face blue, but it was an idea that he added to the story. And I just thought it was
cosplaying.
What's that?
He's cosplaying.
Exactly. And it was just, again, that's partially why I didn't drill down, oh, do it my way, because what if I'd have said, oh, do it precisely what I said, then you don't get fun little surprises like that where yeah, I wanted him to, wear the tank top, but I didn't know that he was going to have the face paint on. I like that.
I maybe it's because I was just watching Age of Ultron before this, where Cap says language.
Yes.
It's like he's like, hell yeah, I love that confidence. I mean, oh boy, this is fun. And she's like, hell yeah, right. And now she's just gonna do it all the time. Like mom and dad are like, thanks, Hollywood blockbuster.
But yeah, so yeah, I'm glad that you, even just with a few pages, found enjoyment, because I've over the years I've struggled to know whether or not it was good, because I've been so deep in it. I was like, well, do I like it because it's mine, or do I like it because it's good? Now, over the recent past, I've come to the realization that I like it because it's good, because there'll be times where I'll be flipping through it, whether it's to promote on a video or whatever, just because I felt like it, and then I'll get lost in a page and I'm like, oh, that's what I personally want in a story. Because there have been plenty of times in the recent past where I would try and pick up a book. This is an example of it where I thought, oh, this might be okay, and and I'm not trying to be mean when I say this, but
I know the guy who wrote it. You're not being mean. You're being honest.
It was just, so I was like, oh, I like the art, especially in the first issue. I was like, oh, that looks like it's gonna be interesting. Again, it goes has 2 different artists telling 2 separate stories, one on Ran and one on Earth, and I was like, oh, okay, this is interesting. I'll give it a shot. But by about the midway point, maybe before the midway point, but at or around the midway point of the book, I was like, I'm kind of not really into this, and it's unpleasant, because I want to find enjoyment here. Like, that's the whole reason I gave you my money, so I can have a good time. So yeah,
it's been a long time since I've got enjoyment from that particular writer, Tom King. Just say the words, RJ. Tom King's writing. In fact, it was Heroes in Crisis that put me. Heroes in Crisis. I was reviewing it on streams and just like going through it's like I took issue number 8 of 9, and I was like, this is crap, and I just threw it over my shoulders. Like, it's the first time DC did a Crisis book that I noped out of before the end.
Right.
I mean, I stuck with Final Crisis to the end, and I had no idea what was going on the entire time.
That's understandable, yes.
Because it was Grant Morrison, but I stuck with it because it was like there were big scenes of things happening.
Absolutely.
I don't know what the story was.
Yeah, the most recent Green Lantern, Beware My Power, by Grant Morrison, I was that way. I'm like, dude, you're being so grandiose, making up languages that nobody can read because you're the only person who knows it. Like, can you please quit with this crap and just tell us the story instead of having me try and figure out what an alien vampire is saying in a made up language you just created?
Yes. Yeah, he is he will blow your mind. If you really want to read Grant Morrison in his heyday, go find the trade paperback collections of Animal Man that he did for Vertigo.
All right.
Primo stuff. I mean, at one point, Animal Man realizes he's a character in a comic book, and it just goes off the rails from there. It was there's a reason why he was being nominated for awards for that.
Absolutely.
One thing I would say about these pages here is that the art is good. Again, I enjoyed that part with the kids. You're not really seeing them in action. They did sample action for the kids' demonstrations here. I think it's the first time we see Sublime Eye in costume is right here.
Absolutely. So
I would suggest put a page that they're fighting or something.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just saying put a page up there where they're fighting a superpowered bad guy or something.
Oh, right. So obviously those pages are to come. I just put the first few up to try and give the general concept. But thank you for that.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even give a page if you're going to give away story with it. Like try to find a panel and just blow it up like a print or something.
For sure. Yeah. So
in action.
I do appreciate that because on a recent live stream I was on, it turns out I actually named this campaign wrong. Like it was a no-no to call it Second Chance. I didn't realize that had some specific connotation that the first time I don't know, succeeded or something. So that's why I renamed it Relaunch instead of Second Chance. Because I just saw people Second Chance, and in my mind I was like, oh, here's a second chance to find an audience. And so somebody was like, oh, that's a no-no. I'm like, my bad. And so I appreciate the input. That's partially why that I'm doing this, not just to find an audience, but also to get input. Because I know that the first time the campaign was on Indiegogo, it said comic book instead of graphic novel. And quickly somebody said, is that thing going to have is that thing going to have a spine? And I said, well, yeah. And they were like, well, then call it a graphic novel so that people realize they're getting more than, just a stapled
page floppy. Yeah.
Exactly. And so it's good to get feedback. So I appreciate it.
By the way, you just saw me have a fun time reading the little bit we've got here. If you think you're going to have a fun time reading this and you want to get your hands on this, again, it is finished. It is completed. So there's no concern about, is he going to get done in time? How long to fulfill? I don't know actually when you do fulfill on this.
So the fulfillment is a lie. I gave myself extra time, but I did that the first time too. I gave it a few months when in reality I got it out in weeks because I was just talking to the printer today. He brought them to me because that's how close I live to the printer.
Oh, it's beautiful that you're working with local.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm all about it. So I didn't know who I was using when the campaign went live the first time, but I kept popping by local comic shops to figure out, because almost all of them had a local section. So I just kept checking, and the more times that I would ask, the more I would keep hearing the same person come up. So I said, well, that's who I need to talk to, because that's the guy. And so it's like I said, I think it says they deliver by, I don't know, June or July, but it'll be way faster than that. It was just, I just picked something in the future because I'm also offering hats for Gamble Comics, which is what I called the company instead of, Marvel Comics or DC, is Gamble Comics. And I'm also offering Everlasting Survivors t-shirts. And I don't precisely know how long either one of those will take, to be honest, which is a part of the reason for the little cushion space.
Yeah. Now, I'm never one to tell people on their first campaign what kind of a tchotchke to put on there, because I always say don't put any. Focus on your comic first, get people to love that, and then try to sell them t-shirts and stuff.
Yes.
However, that being the case, because you are Gamble Comics, and because I have seen a bunch of different comic campaigns do this, you might want to find out who makes poker chips.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I've seen people do poker chips of their comic characters, and you can have the Gamble Comics design on one side, and some sort of one or any one of your characters. You could have 3 poker chips.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, just cut a character out, put them on the thing. I got you. Yeah, no, that's a great idea. So this this is a poster that's offered through the campaign as well. There are 2 poster options. And here's the other one. This is Jeff's new.
Both on the big screen here.
Thank you.
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah, this is Jeff's new cover, and that was that other poster was, oh, actually it's behind me as well. But the other poster was from the colorist Fabry Ferdinand. And so he likes to doodle in his spare time. And I've told him multiple times, I was like, you're doing more than doodle there, kid. Like you're putting together some really good art. So that's the reason that he put a poster out. And so yeah, I am a fan of the people that worked on this. I just thought they did really good work.
Yeah, it looks perfectly fine. I again, the story was carrying it, and the art didn't detract. That's really the most important part of art for me, is that it's like, if I'm enjoying the story, don't take me out of the story with bad art. So,
yes.
So success on the part of the artist here. Folks, what I was trying to say, and the folks in the chat, if you want to get in on this, the link is right below the video this whole time. Click it anytime and throw some money at this. We're going to take a look at the tiers here real quickly. You do have, of course, the featured tier, which is, the more expensive one. It's got everything. It's got both covers.
And there are actually 3 covers here. So this is C and E. So the only reason that A and B are not in the all-in pack is because there were only ever 100 of these printed, and there will never be another one printed after these 100 sell out. There are, I think, 13 left. I don't know what to say down there. And there were only ever 50 of these covers printed. And once they sell out, again, it'll say at the bottom So there's a tier called A Pair of Hicks, which is Jeff's 2 covers. And there's a tier called A Pair of Crooks, which are Nick's 2 covers. And they are limited to the number of these first printings that I still have. Because once they're done, they're gone. They're never going to be printed again, because I just think that it's good to have that scarcity on the A and B covers. Like I said, there were only ever 100 of these printed, and there were only ever 50 of the B covers printed.
Yeah, I see them here. They're both $40 tiers. Again, 15 of the Hicks covers, only 18 of the Crooks covers. Yeah, guys, check it out.
Well, so here's another fun thing. You remember how I said that Jeff outgrew me and went on to do things of his own, whether it's WCBS or whatnot.
Right.
The funny thing is that Nick, the second artist, as soon as the first attempt to find an audience for this story closed, it was either the same day or the very next day, I met with him and I said, all right, so it didn't get where I wanted, but that's okay. The story still can continue. I don't know how that I'm going to get the money together, but we're going to make it happen. And he said, I said, oh, you're done. And he said, yeah. And so the fun part about it was not that he quit, but that he said the experience of working together and producing these 15 pages and seeing the book in print gave him the confidence to work on a project that he's always wanted to do of his own. And that's the reason he stepped away from working with me. And that's also the reason why Fabry's e-cover exists, is because going forward, because Jeff is a busy fellow and Nick is doing his own stuff, Fabry will be the artist for all the stories that come after volume 1. And
okay, wow.
And the beautiful go ahead.
That's fantastic looking stuff. So now
yeah,
I can wait for issue 2.
He's so freaking good. He's young, he's exciting. But the thing is, like I said, yeah, it's just fun and funny that so I've been told by friends before that I'm like the big brother, big sister program for artists. So I find them when they don't have the confidence. I get them ready, and then they go out on their own. Definitely cool, and he had all kinds of confidence all of his own. But it was just a funny acknowledgement that I like to share.
Yeah, so basically, you can get any one of these regular covers. $25 comes with the matching 11x17 poster, and of course you get the sticker. I saw the hat and T-shirt down here. Are any of these things available as add-ons? I mean, if you back one thing, do you go into an add-on phase? And I
do think that is possible, but I forget what precise. I know All In isn't an add-on. I just forget what is an add-on.
Right.
Okay.
All I had to do was click on it. It's the 2 posters.
Okay.
So
you are correct. Yeah, I just forgot what I had set up to be add-on options.
Yeah, I would put more. I would put both the posters as a single add-on each, because you've got the poster over here. If I clicked on this one, well, what if I want the other poster? Now I'm getting 2 copies of the same poster and this one here.
Oh, that's a good call. Appreciate that. Yeah, thank you.
So add-ons, for future reference, add-ons are always best if everything is an individual thing, because then it's shopping. Karen Nicole, she'll have a tier on her campaigns now that's a nothing tier. It's a physical tier. You've bought nothing but the shipping, and all that's for is so that you can get access to the add-ons and say, okay, now put this in my bag, put this in my bag, put this in my bag.
Oh, that is so smart. So I had friends who said to me in person, but I'll be honest, I didn't know if what they were saying was true or just what they thought I wanted to hear. But they said, "Oh man, if the hat was an option all by itself, I would buy that." And I'm like, yeah. In my mind, I'm like, are you just saying that because you think I want to hear it, or is it true? But you actually bring up a really good point when it comes to that idea of picking and choosing what you want. So, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah. Put the hat out there. Put the T-shirt out there. The campaign is still young, so take advantage of the time that you got and do that. You're at 930 right now. This is folks who've been watching this show long enough. You know that you cannot make a comic book on $930. He's funded at $500. Get this thing to where it really needs to be to make that next issue. You've seen the sample art for the cover for the second issue. Well, not for the second issue, but the style of the artist who's going to be doing the second issue.
Yes.
Get behind this and make it happen, because otherwise we're going to be waiting for a year for Oz to get the money together again.
This also, so I don't know how many people are watching, but for anybody who is watching and cannot contribute now, I totally understand. Money's tight, times are hard. But it costs nothing if you go to my YouTube channel, Mr. Mr. Super Oz. It actually looks like, one second, this, and click subscribe, because if you go to my YouTube channel, Mr. Super Oz, and subscribe, it will give you all the updates for the story going forward, whether it's a volume 2 or 3 or flashback origin stories, all kinds of things. So this has been in development for so long that there are actually multiple stories ready to be art produced for, and so the funny thing is, my goal is to create a fan base that wants it, is hungry for it, and wants the back. But as a contingency plan, in case I keep struggling with that, I've actually improved my credit over the last few years. So if I continue to struggle with the growth way, I'm going to go back to the old way, which is pay an artist, get the book made, because I know that I want other people to be jonesing for it, but I'm jonesing for it. I've been so enthralled with these characters for so long that I want more, and that's what I want the fans to feel, and the people who backed the first time on the first attempt. That's a lot of why that I gave them, or not gave, but put the hat and shirt option up and the just poster option up, because I know a lot of the people who were there in the beginning, they want more, but they don't need to rebuy the same book they already have, and so that's why I was like, oh, shirt, hat, other stuff, just so that you don't feel like you're just giving me something, you're getting something in return. And it has been good, because I've had a lot of return customers. It's just the getting to the new people has been the struggle that I've had, and that's why I appreciate you and all other streamers who are willing to assist in that endeavor. So not last weekend, but the weekend before, I was on a live stream called Vets Talking, and I was with a large panel, so I didn't get to have this one-on-one interaction like me and you were doing. And the whole show wasn't about the book or me, but what it did was it introduced me to a bunch of other people who do this, and I'm very grateful for that, because that networking has helped get the word out, and I appreciate you and all the other people who have been there to try and assist.
Well, we will do our best to get you out to other outlets here. I know that Pops has several channels on the network. Plus, he runs CromCon at the end of every month, which is a live online comic convention where it's just all day Friday, all day Saturday, all day Sunday, show with creators coming on and showing their stuff. So we will
Wonderful.
get you hooked up there. And there's some other places where we'll talk after the show here a little bit and get you talking to the right people who can get you some more airtime.
Appreciate it.
I'm looking forward to the second issue here, and I haven't even bought the first issue yet. So,
well, I'm just glad that the teaser did its job, which was to get you interested and, well, both amused and interested in what is happening. And I appreciate the constructive feedback about adding more visuals to
not just more visuals, but specific kinds of visuals.
Yes, that's what I mean. So anyway, I appreciate you.
Well, glad to be of service. That's why I'm here. I have fun talking with new creators, meeting new people, buying new comics, because I had my comic guy text me today. He said, "Hey, that one book that you actually read came in this week." I'm like, "Okay, I'll come and get it tomorrow." I used to go to the comic shop every week, and I would buy my regulars. I would buy stuff that I never read. I would buy first issues. I'd walk out with a stack of stuff. I'd spend 60, 70, 80 bucks sometimes at a time.
It was easy. Yeah.
It was easy. And now I walk in and I walk out. I'm like, yep, there's nothing here for me. Only thing I'm getting right now is Justice Society and Stargirl.
Okay.
So because Jeff Johns is back. I like Jeff Johns' writing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. He produces great work.
Yeah. Well, Oz, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight and showing us the Everlasting Survivors.
I appreciate that.
And folks in the chat also appreciate you being here tonight. We don't have a show without you guys. We're just podcast falling in the woods without you listening. And as always, while you were here, well, we just hope you had a blast. Good night.